Hi everyone, welcome back to Legally Yours. I'm here again with the wonderful Lucy Percy from Head and Heart Estate Planning. And we've actually got a really interesting episode that we are filming today. So this is for all of those people out there who are perhaps in a similar age demographic to Lucy and I. We won't actually specify what that is, but potentially doing their wills and have children, young children, or children in their teens, and are really trying to figure out the guardian issues. So Lucy, thank you so much for joining me for this discussion. So look, I know I hear this all the time from people, even just in my own friendship group, where they talk about doing their wills and appointing guardians. And sometimes this can be the real sort of stickler because, we obviously want to make sure that we're appointing the right type of people and those sorts of things. So, one thing that I often hear is, when's the best time to actually include? Is it when they're first born? Is this the time they should be thinking about guardians, or should they wait until their children are a bit older? What's your advice in relation to that?
Yeah, perfect. Yes, you should have a will before you have children anyway, but definitely when you have your first child especially, it should be reviewed and a guardianship clause should be included.
Yeah.
What I find in practice is that people really come to me when their first isn't about primary school. And I wrote a blog post about this saying, that's okay. That's a really good time to stop and think about it. And there are a couple of reasons why. I want people to use that as a trigger for when they, remember to do it. So by the time your child has reached school age, you know a lot more about them and their needs and, health problems or personality difficulties, things like that. So, you can sort of match them with a guardian better.
Yes.
I think also when you have your first children, you have an idea of what your village is going to look like and, who's going to be able to help you. And sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. And so I think, after a few years, you have a really good idea about who you can truly depend on. And so I think that's a perfect time to review it.
I love it. And I love that trigger. And I love the discussion about the tribe. I guess that leads me on to my next question. So in terms of, what sort of things you should be thinking about the guardian that you do appoint, is it, you sort of mentioned looking at the child's personality potentially and who that support network is. Well, what other things that should you be thinking about when you're sort of thinking about the person you appoint as guardian?
Well, I think the number one thing is that you should have a talk with the person that you are considering appointing. So you don't actually have to let them know that they've been appointed. But I think the starting point is to say, look, you're in mind. How do you feel like your marriage would cope absorbing this? Our children, if that was the case, where would they live and that sort of thing, and just check that they're on the same page.
Yes.
Other considerations that some, just really simple things. Sometimes when we take instructions, people will say, my brother and sister-in-law, and we have to stop and say, do you mean both of them if they were divorced, or if one of them died, or do you just mean one of them? So some really finicky things like that. Who actually do you mean when you say dad? Do you just mean mum? Or if mum's died and dad's alive, do you mean dad? Really?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. So a couple of things.
That's fantastic. And I can assume as well, also thinking about religion, thinking about, if that's really important, that, they'll continue on those sorts of things, perhaps even education. So, where you kind of aim to have your children. So there's so much in there, but I really like that one about thinking about who you're actually appointing, because that's certainly one thing. I think we tend to just go, oh, my sister and her husband. But of course, if in the event that they don't stay together, who is it that you're actually talking about? Such amazing stuff. So much to think about. Yeah, absolutely. So the next question that we often get is, can you actually draft the will and then just leave out the guardian clause? I know you can, but is it ideal?
Well, in my mind, absolutely. So this is one of the things that people DM me on Instagram the most about, or they say we've put it off because we can't agree.
Yes.
A little secret, your nomination in your will is not actually legally binding anyway. It's an indication of your wishes and it's a direction to your executor. But if either side of the family or somebody else thinks that they are better off, then it becomes a family law matter. So it's not final in your will, and your will has so many more functions other than organising your guardianship. So if this is what is stopping you from doing your will, really that's just not acceptable.
And that is such good advice, Lucy, because I do hear that. I do people say, you know, they're all comfortable with everything else, and then they get to that clause and they get stuck and they get sort of paralysis around it. And then they go, oh, well, it's all too complicated. I won't bother. And like you say, it's better to have a will, and if you have to leave that clause out and maybe even then come to it back to it at a later stage, then yeah, it's better to have the will in place than not have one at all. So absolutely fantastic advice. The other one is when we've got two people, a married couple, and they perhaps can't agree on the same. Do they have to have the same guardians in their individual wills, or can they appoint different?
No, again, they don't have to be mirror image at all. So it would just be, I suppose, if they died together, I imagine that would be, a family law contested matter for those two guardians appointed. That would be a worst case scenario, that parents die together. Yes. Otherwise, it would just be who died last. So the surviving biological parent will always get guardianship unless there's a reason for them not to. Yes. So if they can't agree, but I have some strategies, and they're actually in a guide that can be downloaded from our website. Things like, would it reassure your partner if we made sure that the executor or the trustee, if you're setting up a trust, knew that we wanted a portion of funds available to send your children on holiday with your in-laws? Just really thinking about practically, okay, well, how can we make sure that the executors and the legal guardians are committed to, making sure there's access to both sides of the family for those children.
I love it, Lucy. And and I mean, look, the really interesting for me in these scenarios, I mean, no one likes thinking about their death, particularly in our age, sort of demographic where we're, really in the thick of raising kids and we're doing all those sorts of things. We're not sort of thinking about the latter part of our life or passing away. But, what I absolutely love about you is just the genuine care and calmness, and guidance that you give around this that makes it feel safe to discuss. And look, the reality is once you've done the will, once you've done all these things and turned your mind, you can then, once you've signed it, you can put it somewhere safe and then you're off and you don't have to think about it anymore and it's sort of there. So, absolutely love this. And were there any other things that you wanted to share on this issue? Sorry, I think I did cut you off there.
No, not at all. Thanks for having me talk about it. It is literally the question that I get the most. So
absolutely. Well, I love it. And look, as Lucy did mention, she has a guide and a checklist in relation to all of these sorts of things. So I highly, highly recommend you download it. You can actually access it at headandheartestateplanning.com.au. And if you'd like to actually request a complimentary phone chat with Lucy to talk through these issues, you can also find Lucy on our platform at legallyyours.com.au. Lucy, always a pleasure to talk to you. We must do more of these sort of really down to earth kind of little quick sort of advice on these types of things, because it's not a great good feel topic, but we do need to be responsible and have these sorts of discussions. And so, absolutely love it. Thank you very much. And thank you for watching.
Bye.